Hello everyone, welcome to 901 Woodworking. I'm Huibert Mees, and this is part 2 of a two-part series on how to make a wine barrel side table. In part 1, we selected the staves we want to use, cut them to length, and we selected the top we wanted to use. We took the top apart and we re-glued it back together so that it's nice and flat and straight. We got everything cut and machined to length, ready for sanding and finishing. Here in part 2, we're going to do that sanding and the finishing, and we'll do the final assembly. So, let's get started. The sanding of the pieces is pretty straightforward. I use 150 grit sandpaper on a palm sander. Make sure to hit all of the different sides. Sometimes on these smaller pieces it's a bit difficult just because it's difficult to hold them. But make sure to also hit all of the edges. These barrel staves have very sharp edges. And I've gotten more than my share of splinters from rubbing my hands along the edges. So make sure you hit those edges really good with the sander, round them over so that you get rid of any splinters and any splits in the wood that exist along the edges. I find that 150 grit is more than enough. A single pass is more than enough. The finish it leaves is nice and smooth, and for an outdoor piece of furniture that is certainly more than good enough. I don't think that you need to take multiple passes with multiple levels of sandpaper. That would be more appropriate for indoor fine furniture. But since this is predominantly intended to be used outside, the level of finish that 150 grit gives is more than appropriate. For the actual finish, I use a high-quality exterior grade polyurethane. There are many choices here. This is the one I particularly like. I use a brush-on version of it. I've tried the spray-on versions, but I find that the spray-on leaves a film that is just too thin and doesn't offer sufficient protection. The finish I use is a clear satin, but this is really a question of personal choice. You can add a color to it if you want to stain it a particular color. Your level of gloss is all a matter of personal taste. I use the satin here for the exterior pieces. I use a gloss for more interior pieces, but it's really just a matter of taste. It's up to you, however you want the piece to look. Okay, the first coat of finish is on. We'll let that dry for about an hour or two until it gets a little tacky. Not quite completely dry, but just a bit tacky. Put on a second coat. Then we'll let those dry completely, probably overnight, and then come back tomorrow and flip them over and put 2 coats on the other side, the same way we did today. With the finishing all done, it's time to start the assembly process. Take the top and lay it upside down on the bench. Make sure to put a towel or something underneath it to help protect the finish. And install the cross. Make sure the cross is centered in all directions. To attach the crossbar to the top, I've pre-drilled several holes for deck screws. I like to use the deck screws because they're coated and won't corrode. Attach the center of the crossbar and the upper and the lower end of the wings with 1.5 inch deck screws. For the left and the right ends of the crossbar, I've drilled oversized holes, and I'm using 1.5 inch round head wood screws with a washer. The oversized holes and the washer under the wood screw head will allow for expansion and contraction of the top through the seasons. If I use deck screws on the ends of those, there is a possibility the top would split as it expanded and contracted with the changes in humidity throughout the year. With the crossbar in place, it's time to install the legs. I pre-drill 2 countersunk holes on the ends of each of the legs, approximately 1/2 the thickness of the crossbar away from the edge. Then drill a pilot hole into the ends of the crossbar. I then use a 2-inch deck screw and screw it into the end of the crossbar. The reason for the longer screw is you're going into end grain. It's not the strongest direction of the wood, so you need a lot of thread engagement into the wood to give it strength. Continue this process for all 4 legs. Once all 4 legs are attached, it's time to install the braces. Hold them in place and then pre-drill for 1 3/4 inch deck screws. Do this on all 4 legs. Next, take one of the barrel hoops and cut it opposite the 2 rivets. After applying some tape to the legs to help protect the finish, lay the hoop over the legs and clamp it into place. Make sure to center the 2 rivets on one of the legs. Start by clamping the riveted part of the hoop, and then work your way around to the other legs and clamp the hoop into place. With the hoop clamped into place, mark the end for the first cut. With the first cut complete, again, clamp the hoop back into place. And mark the other end of the hoop for the second cut. With the second cut complete, clamp the hoop back into place. To hold the hoop into place, I use number 6 round head wood screws, and I pre-drill through the metal hoops with a 9/32 inch drill bit. Make sure to not punch through the hoop and then drill into the wood. Be very careful to feel as you get through the metal to stop pushing on the drill so that you don't damage the wood. Drill a pilot hole into the wood and then install a 1-inch long number 6 round head wood screw. Do this in 2 places on each leg. Repeat this process for all the other legs. And here's the finished side table. Thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this 2-part series on how to make a wine barrel side table. Leave a comment. I love to hear from everyone. And join me next time as we do another wine barrel project.